Welcome to the Build Better Blueprint, the podcast where we discuss the foundations of real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. Join Christian Cardamone as he shares insights, strategies, and stories that will empower you to level up your business, your lifestyle, and your impact. Let's build a better blueprint for success, starting now.
All right, welcome back to the Build Better Blueprint. This is Christian Cardamone. Thanks for tuning in. Today, folks, I've got a real treat for you. I've got probably the handsomest guest I've had on the show, Mr. Will O'Donnell. Will's journey into real estate is fueled by his commitment to providing a better life for his family. After working multiple jobs since age 14 and overcoming unstable housing conditions, he achieved his dream of buying a house where he and his family could call home in 2018. Now, Will's a full-time real estate investor and power broker. William has acquired a real estate portfolio valued over $10 million in assets and became financially free at the age of 26. Will enjoys talking business, investing, and traveling with his wife and 2 daughters. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Will O'Donnell. How are you, man?
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate the intro. It's a pleasure to be here, an honor, and I'm excited for today's show.
Good. I hope you're in a secure location because basically once this airs, the fans start knocking, start chasing autographs. It gets a little overwhelming. So just, kind of keep a low profile after this airs and let the dust settle.
Awesome, man. I'm ready to sign some autographs, bro. I just bought a new pen today. I'm ready to go.
I love it, man. I love it. So some quick background. I've known you for a year now. We're both members of GoBundance and spent some great time together, lots online, lots in person. We've done some really cool stuff together. I'm very grateful to know you, man. I think you're just a tremendous guy. And I want to introduce my audience to you because I think you're like a success story that, you're a very humble guy. And I think you've done so well and the world needs to know about it, man, because, and I really truly think the best is yet to come for you because you've got such a runway ahead of you with your skill set and your dynamic personality. I'm just excited to kind of be along for the ride, man. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you are, what you're doing, and kind of how it all started for Will.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate that, bro. That means a lot to me, and you're one of those guys that I'd love to have in my life for as long as God allows me to be on this earth, man. You're just an awesome dude. So, yeah, my journey in the real estate realm began back in 2017. I was going to school to become a psychologist because in high school, everybody came to me with their problems. So I said, you know what? I'm pretty good at listening and giving advice because, everybody keeps coming to me and they're referring their friends. So what happened if I go to school and, went for psychology, became a social worker. So I went to a community college here and I started studying psychology. And in the midst of all of that, I was going through a really tough time. You read in the intro, unstable housing. And I didn't want to put homeless because when I think of homeless, I think of like the homeless guy on the corner begging for money. But we really didn't have a home. We didn't have a place we could call home. When my father left, when I was in high school, my mother still to this day doesn't really speak much English. She always had a minimum wage paying job. So we were going to get kicked out of the apartment we were living in because she couldn't afford it on her own and we're 4 kids, or we were just going to voluntarily leave. So that's what we did. We voluntarily left that apartment. And my mother had a friend that had a high ranch. In the high ranches, they have an attached garage usually on the bottom. And that's where the 5 of us stayed, the 4 of us and my mom. We lived there for almost 2 years. We had no heat. It was really, really cold in the winters here on Long Island. I'm in New York. And I remember going to school and giving my homework and I hand my notebook over to the teacher and she looked at me. Why is this notebook so cold? And I told her I don't have heat or hot water where I live. And that's when I realized I was, to be honest with you, man, in my life when I've had the least, it's as if I was the happiest in those moments. And it just makes you think there's so much to be grateful for in every stage of your life, no matter where you are in life. There's always so much to be grateful for. And in that moment, the 5 of us were closer than ever. We were all bunched in together because we all slept on the floor together, my family. And so going through that in high school, worked 3 jobs at the same time. I was doing landscaping. I worked at Burger King and I did lifeguarding too. And then, the sheriff actually kicked us all out of that high ranch. My mom's friend was going through a foreclosure. We didn't even know. So I found an apartment on Craigslist, a basement apartment. We all moved in there. And then after we moved in there, it's illegal to rent out a basement here on Long Island as an apartment. And so the municipality kicked us out. And, it was just getting kicked out and kicked out. And we ended up at my grandmother's. She had a one bedroom studio apartment, and my grandmother lived there with my aunt and my cousins, so we joined them. So it was about 8 of us in a one bedroom. And waking up, man, we'd look at our legs. I had a twin bed. We had a mattress on the floor. My younger brother, and that's where we'd sleep, wake up the next day and find like trails of just bed bugs on our legs, and it was mice and roach infested. And it was at that point where I started to wonder if this is what my life was going to be like my whole life. We always dreamt of having some sort of stable housing. We did all the research we could. We found out about Section 8. We signed up for the list, but the waiting list here on Long Island is almost 10 years now. Just the years went by, and then that's when I stumbled across a guy on YouTube. I started YouTubing and Googling how to be successful, how to make money, how to get rich. And this guy, Ty Lopez, popped up. He had a course. I couldn't afford the course, but I researched where this guy built his course from, and it was from a book called Success Principles by Jack Canfield. So what I did was I looked that book up on Amazon. It was like $20, and right beneath it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. So while I'm going to college, while I'm working these three jobs, I pick up the habit of reading. I'd probably never read a book from maybe Captain Underpants from like cover to cover. That's it.
Yeah, it's a great read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, man, I'm getting into real estate. I got to get into real estate. There's a thing called passive income, and you can make money while you're not working. This was a concept unknown to me. So I said, I'm going to get my real estate license. And I was not the brightest kid, but I signed up for the course. I went there, and no idea how I passed the test. I passed the school test and the state test first shot. I said, man, this is what God wants me to do. If I pass, this is a sign. So that's how I got started in real estate, man.
That's wild, dude. That story is like it's almost like a Disney movie of like rags to riches, because it's so, you describe it in such detail, the way that you guys just had hardship after hardship after hardship. And then you discovered this tool, and then you go, and it is like a hero's journey, man, that you were like enlightened, and then you did the work, and now you got into real estate. And from there, the rest they say is history, but you became a broker, started representing buyers and sellers, or you started investing? Or tell us how the genesis goes from Will, the poor kid on the floor, to now Will, the real estate agent, and beyond that, just so people have some
Yeah.
background of what you're doing now.
So I graduated high school in 2015, and then 2017, while I was going to community college, is when I got my license. So I made it a goal every day to knock on 100 doors. That was my goal. I joined a small mom and pop brokerage with no support. So I kind of had to teach myself, and I found this guy on YouTube that basically said to go knock on doors to get listings. So that's what I did. I didn't know what the MLS was. I didn't have I didn't even have a computer. I had these cheap business cards, and I just went out and started knocking on doors. And I got my first listing in 3 months. And then it was just building on that. I used all my commissions in 2018 to help my mom buy a house. We bought together. And dude, it just from there on, the vision was to always follow what Rich Dad Poor Dad talked about, which was owning real estate. So I found out, having a real estate license wasn't necessary, but it definitely helped become more familiar with the market. You have access to the MLS and just out there hustling for listings. It gave me a good idea, a good knowledge of the market. And so I knew how to identify an opportunity when it presented itself.
Yeah. That's something that is almost like an innate attribute that some folks have or they don't have, I think, because recognizing opportunity, I think, is what separates the top producers from the people that never get a chance to really succeed, because opportunity is all around us, but being able to recognize it and then also take action on it, knowing what to do. Did you have like a blueprint or a map, or were you kind of like defaulting, like you said, to Rich Dad Poor Dad as like your playbook?
Yeah, well, it was a combination of Rich Dad Poor Dad really opened my mind, and then I sought after continuing education when it came to investing in real estate, and that's when I stumbled across bigger pockets. So Bigger Pockets taught me how to run numbers, how to analyze deals. And all I really needed to know was the cash on cash formula. How do I find out my cash on cash return on a deal? And that's basically your net operating income divided by the cash invested in the deal. So I was aiming for an 8% return when I bought any kind of real estate long-term rental asset. And as long as it met 8% return in an area that I knew, I would go ahead and buy it. So I'd save up all my commissions and just start buying real estate that way.
So were you like basically like literally still living way below your means and just every time you got a check, it was going into fund this investment? Or were you like the flashy party boy out driving a BMW, buying beach houses, being cool? Seems like you were pretty disciplined.
Yeah, I was living extremely frugal. I mean, my first year in real estate, I probably made $13,000 my first year. Obviously, I had other income from the other jobs, but my second year, I went full time and I probably made closer to 50 my second year. And then I met my wife in 2018. So it was literally like a year after I became licensed, I met my wife. And that house that I bought with my mom, it had a breezeway that connected to a garage. So I actually built an apartment there and moved in there with my wife that I married within 4 months of meeting. So we lived there. I found her a job as a paralegal with one of the attorneys that I did business with. We lived off of her salary, which was like $500 a week. And then every commission that I made, we would stack and buy real estate with.
So that's wild to me, man. Like you discovered real estate online, like Ty Lopez, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Bigger Pockets, and you just like jumped into this and committed like 100%. So clearly you're very coachable. I'm like wondering what if you did you jump into anything else that like didn't work out? Because what if you stumbled onto somewhat like those are all really reputable resources, right? And a lot of folks default back and they say that Rich Dad, Poor Dad like changed my life and Bigger Pockets. These are some of like the best known resources for education. But at any point in time, did you have any like setbacks where maybe you thought you might be going down the wrong path or not seeing results fast enough or following like someone who is maybe not giving you good information?
Well, I'm sure I've listened to people that had tried to give valuable information, but it turned out to not be valuable or helpful, or just, maybe they didn't intentionally try to give wrong information, but it was just not good information. And I think a lot of quote unquote gurus out there are trying to give advice and sell courses, but they haven't necessarily done the thing. So I made sure to only take advice from people that I knew were doing the thing. So, like, I'm not going to take advice from somebody on investing in real estate that does not own any property. I made sure to only take my advice from people that were living lives that I wanted to one day live, or doing the things that I wanted to be doing. So I think that's a good blueprint to follow, and just kind of screen that person before you decide to start giving your attention to them. Did they do the things that you're looking to do, or are they just trying to give advice because anybody could give advice?
Yeah. And there's so much noise out there, dude. Now it's like, especially with the internet and like you could open your phone and there's, especially the way we get targeted now, there's 100 people barking at you trying to sell you their class and their method and telling you what they think you need to do to get rich in real estate. Because it's like a flashy, shiny object for people to want to get involved with because a lot of folks in real estate do really well. So I can see why it's so attractive. I just think it's so cool, man, that you discovered it, you studied it, you applied it, and then it just went to work. It goes to show you, like, on one hand, you had to do the work, so that's the hard part. But it's not like a crazy formula here. We're not curing cancer. You identify the assets, you put in the work, like you said, you knock on 100 doors. That's outrageous. That's the most simple principle to be like, if you want to go make contacts and get listings, go knock on doors. But nobody does that. And I've seen you do it when we were in California, and it was amazing. So I think you have the ability to do things like that that a lot of people won't do. So if you had to give someone some advice, though, that was just signing up, because it's not everybody that has the kind of success that you've had in such a short period of time. So if we want to give someone advice, it's like listening to Will, and like, Will's a young guy. He just got in. He read the books that I read. He's listened to Bigger Pockets. What are a couple things that you would tell that person they need to do to get into production quickly, start generating income so that they can start buying investment properties?
Yeah. I feel like if you're listening to this podcast, then you're definitely different. People that are investing their time into trying to learn new things, new skills, and listen to conversations on how to grow. Those are the people that are actually, they want it. I think you got to want it. You got to have the desire, because most people are just happy and okay with living a typical life, an average life. So that I would say is what really set me apart, is I had the desire to live a different life. So I didn't care about the guy that cursed me out at the door or over the phone, because I was so committed to that desired life. So it all goes back to leaning into your why. Why are you doing it? Why do you want the better life? Because if that's not strong enough, you're just going to default back to whatever's comfortable.
So what would you say is a good approach for someone to figure out what their why is? Was it that crystal clear for you at the beginning that you knew you wanted something better? And so it was just, this is the vehicle I'm going to choose? Or how would you tell someone to identify their why if they're unsure or unclear?
Yeah. I use Dean Graziosi has a framework of 7 levels deep. So he asked the question why 7 levels. So in other words, let's just say if somebody were to ask you, why are you working so hard? And you may answer, well, I want to make more money. Why do you want to make more money? So I could have this house in this area. Why do you want this house in this area? Oh, because I was never able to have that as a kid growing up. Oh, why weren't? Oh, because my dad this. Oh, what? And then when you go 7 levels deep, the truth comes out the deeper you go. And usually it's something along the lines of, I want to be in control because the way I grew up, I never had those things and I want to be able to provide it for my children. So when you go, that's when usually when you reach that 6th, that 7th level of asking why is when, according to Dean, and I think it's a proven concept, you start getting emotional thinking about these things. And that's what kind of fuels you to push through all of the obstacles and get you to whatever that desired outcome is. So the 7 levels deep, going 7 levels deep, asking why, I think is a good blueprint for that.
Yeah, I love that, man. I've done that exercise a couple times, and it's honestly, it is powerful. And if you listen to two other people kind of engage back and forth, it's almost just as powerful, because you can see it's like pulling back the armor, pulling back the, I want to be rich, or I want to have a nice car. And the deep, you don't really hit the bone until level 5, 6, and 7. And by 7, it's generally, that's where you tap into the real motivation that fuels people. And that's, if you can get that deep and identify that or apply that to a cause, I mean, then you're unstoppable, right? I mean, it's just having someone to ask you those questions, someone to help push you and to help you find the right lane to be in. Because if you're asking me 7-level questions about, mowing lawns, you might get to like this 3rd level and then we kind of end it there, because I'm good mowing lawns and I'm done with it. So I'm not passionate about it. So I'm not going to have a why to do that. So identifying that, really figuring out why you're into something, is the way to tap into that jet fuel, I think. So I think it's so cool. I want to ask you about coaching and mentorship. You mentioned Dean and a few of the other authors in the past and a lot of the folks that you listen to. How important is coaching and mentorship to you, and where do you think you'd be without it?
Yeah, man. I think coaching and education, going to conferences, investing in courses, investing in yourself and books, I think that's just huge. If it weren't for investing in coaching, mentors, networking groups like GoBundance, mastermind groups, conferences, I don't think I would definitely not be anywhere near the level I'm at today. I always recommend going to at least 2 to 4 conferences a year. I usually like doing one a quarter. And then right now I have a habit of reading a book a month about right now, and that's huge. And then having either a small intimate group or a one-on-one kind of coach or relationship to hold you accountable. It could be the form of a group like we have, we're in that Go Pod, or having just that one-on-one person that, and I actually think it's valuable to pay that person, because when you pay attention. And so I think those three things could really catapult somebody to the next level of success that they're looking for. So it's conferences, it's books, and then it's that accountability factor, whether it's a small intimate group or a one-on-one kind of coach slash mentor.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, man. I think you've got to have all three in synergy, because otherwise, if you're just reading or you're just going to conferences, you have to have that interaction, you have to have that accountability, and you've got to have someone to check in with. Otherwise, you have no barometer to measure against as far as if you are progressing or digressing. You've got to go. No one does this stuff alone, hitting these high levels of success without, at a minimum, encouragement, but someone just to help calibrate your heading from time to time based on your goals. So that's great, man. So let's switch gears for a second. I want to know, like right now, what you're working on. So for the folks that don't know, you're a broker with Keller Williams who does tremendous volume with listings and working with buyers. You also do fix and flips, and you also do buy and hold for yourself. Tell us where your business is headed right now in the next couple of years and what you're really excited about.
Yeah, man. What gets me most excited is buying real estate. I love buying and holding real estate. Right now, I'm under contract on 3 deals, really hoping to lock up another 2. I have a spreadsheet where I basically have all the deals that I've made offers on, and this way we can track, my assistant and I could track what the status on that offer is and just lock up as many deals as possible. I think there's a common trend right now of AI being used in businesses, and I think it's progressing at a level where we're going to see a lot of changes in the labor market. So I think getting ahead of that is purchasing as much real estate as possible, because people will always need housing. That's something AI cannot take away, is shelter. There are other human needs such as food, water, but shelter's up there. And so that's why I'm acquiring heavily, not as heavily as I'd like to, but trying to as much as possible. I'm a very conservative buyer, so there are a lot of deals that I kind of nitpick.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's what I'm most excited, and that's what I focus most of my energy on nowadays.
So I got a question for you. When we talk to folks and they're like, I'm buying real estate, I'm buying real estate, to the average bear who's like just listening, they're probably thinking like, where are you getting all this money to buy all this real estate? Real estate is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Are you making that much money to where you can just go out and buy 5 houses that are, $300,000 or $400,000 a piece? Or explain a little bit about how you like to structure a deal and what resources do you have so that you can demonstrate that, if you want to buy an income producing asset like some real estate, you don't need the full dollar amount to acquire it to get into it. So it's not so intimidating, because some people say, I want to invest in real estate. I've got to save my money. And the best time to buy is yesterday. Second best time is now. So explain that, how someone can get into this game.
Yeah, dude, I used to think that same way. I used to tell my accountant to talk to my loan officers to show enough income on my tax return to qualify for a conventional loan. And I look back and I'm like, such an idiot. So now I literally show no income. I don't use my own money. I don't use credit. So it's all creative finance. So I heard this saying in the beginning of my career when it came to buying real estate. You need 2 of 3 things. It's either the money, you have the hustle, and the knowledge. If you don't have the money, but you have the knowledge and the hustle, you can make the deal work. So there's a deal that I'm buying right now for $350,000. I have a lender, which is a friend and past client of mine that I've sold some of his real estate deals as a real estate agent. I kept in touch with him, and I knew he was one of my wealthier clients, and I started asking him for money. So he's putting a first lien position. In other words, he's giving me 300 grand for this $350,000 property that I'm purchasing, putting a lien against the property for that 300 grand. And now I need $50,000. I'm getting the seller to agree to hold a $50,000 second lien position. And so now I'm able to purchase that property with $0 out of pocket. My plan is to fix that property up with a line of credit and then refinance into a DSCR 30-year fixed loan. DSCR is a debt service coverage ratio loan, which basically takes the income of the property, and as long as that income or the rent covers the mortgage, that property is now mortgageable and the bank will give you the 30-year fixed DSCR loan. And so I'm taking that new loan, paying off both lenders, which is Gary, the first position, and the homeowner, the seller, at second position. And I'm still going to put around 150 to 200 grand in my pocket, tax free, because it's a refinance, a cash out refinance, and keep the property. And it's going to make about $2,000 a month. So that's how I'm buying real estate.
Thank you for being so detailed on that, man. It's so cool to see the genesis of that transaction and how it goes. And I think what I want to stress to people is it sounds like that would never happen for me, or Will's got these connections, he's got all these rich clients, and maybe Will's like real slick and he's got a good way. This type of thing can happen all the time. And it's really just about the approach. Obviously, relationships in this circumstance are the most valuable asset for you because you're able to leverage that with based on past performance with your client. He trusts you. He knows what you're capable of doing. And you've got a seller who is probably going to have some benefit for carrying back the second note. So that's like a beautiful transaction, start to finish. You do a couple of those a year and you're making an incredible living based on the funds you're pulling out each year. And then you're still compounding appreciation and cash flow on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And something that has helped me get these deals is doing things that other people weren't willing to do. So for example, I cold called this guy and he had a few properties in the neighborhood that I usually buy in. And just through our conversation, he briefly mentioned that he was part of the some local business networking group of that particular town. Well, I looked up when that group meets and I actually showed up to the meeting and I didn't bring up the property once to the guy. I just wanted him to get to know me and I wanted to get to know him until he brought the property up and we built great rapport. At the end of the meeting, he was like, I've had other investors call me about this property, but I rather sell it to you. You're a local guy. I met you and I want to sell the property to you. And he's doing 100% seller finance for me on that deal.
That's amazing. Just because of the relationship that you built with him, and you're a real person, not like a Autobot AI text message or call trying to solicit him.
Yeah. And that might be another myth that we have or an obstacle in our mind holding us back as well. You have all these big dogs scooping up all the real estate, BlackRock or whatever in my neighborhood. But the truth is, I think as the small guy, we have a super duper advantage because we could go in there, do unique things like that, form unique, powerful relationships, build a rapport belly to belly with these guys, let them know that we're real human beings starting out like they once were starting out. And those guys want to help guys like us. And so there's this other guy, dude, that I was prospecting to get his listing. He was a for sale by owner. And he mentioned one day that he had some debris and he was going to be at the property fixing the fence. And then he's going to start interviewing real estate agents. I went over there. He said he was going to be there. I asked him, what time are you going to be there? He said at 5 a.m. I showed up at 5 a.m. in like contractor clothes, ready to get my hands dirty. I helped him with all the debris. I put the fence up with him. Not only did he give me that listing, dude,
Yeah,
but he's also now a guy that I do deals with. He'll lend me money on any deal that I need money on. Like it's doing the things like that most people wouldn't do. Is that's going to get you the deal or the relationship or the money or the next level of success.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of you showing up first and coming from contribution and delivering something without asking for anything in return. And then by virtue of that, you become the most obvious choice and you get the ability to get into rapport with somebody. And then that secures a relationship in future business, and beyond, just by doing something as simple as that, but like nobody would do that. It's a simple thing to do though. You did it and look where it's paid dividends for you and tenfold.
As cliche as it sounds, man, when you really care about people, there's just God has a way of just blessing you, that you have the law of reciprocity and things are just going to go your way.
It's a beautiful thing. Very, very simple, very true. I think having, like an abundance mindset and playing into that is such a simple thing to do that. And nobody really has an excuse not to participate in that. Yeah, that's one of the most powerful just kind of things that's just out there, and it applies to everybody. So, I love that, dude. It's a great story. 5 a.m. is a little early for me. Actually, these days it's not because of the new baby. But tell me what you think about the state. We had a great conversation. It's been a couple months now, but when Brian and you and I and Dave were talking about the state of the market, and I really enjoyed that because your take on where the market is, where it's going, what's going to happen to prices. Give us your 2 cents on kind of the state of the union regarding real estate and investing right now.
Yeah, I think most of the country is going into a buyer's market. Well, I don't think, that's what I'm reading, the articles I'm coming across. Inventory is increasing. A lot of buyers are fidgety. They're backing out of deals. It's tougher to make deals happen than what it was a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. And it's because of the rates being at where they at for as long as they have been. So the market is definitely tougher. The discussion we had was, will we see a market crash or not? And I know some markets that have seen declines as deep as 20%. I read in Sacramento, I've read in some parts of Georgia, some parts of Florida, where they have an excess amount of supply, where they've been building. I've heard of crazy incentives that builders are offering buyers just to buy their product because they can't move the product. And so many different opinions. I think there's always going to be a deal out there, no matter what kind of market it is. And me personally, I don't care if the market declines 20, 30, or even 50%, because all of my debt is 30-year fixed. It's fixed for 30 years. It's staying the same. And I'm in this for the long haul. I'm also in this for the cash flow. Of course, I care about equity and appreciation, but the reason I started investing in real estate was for financial freedom, was for passive income. So I think we have to understand what kind of investors we are. Are we looking for appreciation? Are we looking to build equity? Or are we looking for cash flow? Or are we looking for all three? There's nothing wrong with any of those answers. Me personally, my priority is cash flow. How much money can I build? How much passive income can I build coming in every month to support a lifestyle that I'm looking forward to living with my family? That's all I care about when it comes to investing in real estate.
And that's because that allows you that level of security and the ability to maneuver without kind of the stress, or is that, how did you arrive at that thesis?
It all comes back to my why, right? Not having enough. So I just want to have enough to the point where I don't have to go back to what I had to go through with my kids now, especially. So it's always going to be up to cash flow. So whatever lifestyle you're looking to live, how much cash flow does that equal? And then my goal is to have that and some, just to have some sort of a cushion, because you and I both know something always goes wrong with a property. Maybe there's a vacancy, maybe there's a bathroom, maybe there's a kitchen, a roof, whatnot. And so, that's what I tend to focus on, is the cash flow aspect more than the appreciation and equity.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm very similar in that same mindset and kind of investing thesis. I mean, the ability for continuity, security, to me at my stage in life with a family and having gone through what I have gone through already with the highs and lows of markets, recurring revenue or cash flow is my biggest kind of target, because it just allows to mitigate stress. And if you can mitigate stress because of finances, then the rest of life is easy. I think so. It's there to enjoy, and that's a big component to that. So I'm curious, as we're kind of winding down here right now, what you're reading, what you're listening to, kind of who you're seeking wisdom and advice from while you're on this journey.
Yeah. Well, I just finished reading The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. That was an amazing book. Highly recommend that book. And I just picked up one of John Maxwell's books, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. So that's what I'm reading right now. In terms of education, I'm listening to, I like Ed Milet. I listen to a lot of Ed Milet when I'm in the car. I've been listening to Alex Hormozy. I think he has a lot of good nuggets there. Brilliant business mind. Dan Martell. I like Dan. he's got a great YouTube channel, man. His videos are like so jam-packed with value.
I know they're so well produced and he's such an eloquent speaker. Like that guy has the ability to deliver a message. I like speak his language. Some people have the best message, but they can't. The delivery method isn't there. And for me, it just clicks with Dan's content, and I really like that.
Dude, his ability to articulate in every video, he's such a great communicator. Like I listen to him and it makes me reflect like, man, there's a lot I know I have to improve on when it comes to communication, tonality,
Mhm.
the speed of my speech. I'm a very slow speaker. So, Dan is just like all of his videos, man. It's like, I feel like he's reading off of something, but it's all off the dome. He's just flowing.
Yeah, he's just a smart dude. I mean, he's got an incredible story, but I think what I like about him the most is that he's so matter of fact about things that so many of us like him and haw about and are just like, oh, I don't know, I'm gonna have this conversation, or I don't know what I'm gonna do here. And he's so straightforward and in
Yeah,
such a conversational way where he almost makes you feel silly for making a bigger deal about it than you need to. And then he achieves the outcome he's looking for and it's onward. So it's a great model, I think, to study. Yeah, definitely support his content, man. He's someone worth checking out.
for sure.
All right. I'm just noticing the bottom of the screen says Bad Bunny. I put that down as the actual guest name. Folks, if you can't see Will, it's because he looks like Bad Bunny, in my opinion. Handsome devil. Any final thoughts, man, wisdom that you want to share with our listeners that are maybe looking for some advice from a young gun who's got big things ahead of him?
Yeah, man. I would say get centered, know your why, and get centered in a rock solid foundation. For me, that's my faith as a Christian. Aside from reading every night, I read the Bible with my wife every night, and that really centers us as a couple, as a family, but also as an individual. And just knowing that no matter what happens in life or business, I know God's got my back and I know I'm going to be all right. So having a firm foundation in life, in this life that's so full of just distractions and it helps you stay focused on what's true. And that's that each and every one of us are so special. We're created in his image and we're put on this earth for a very special purpose. And just knowing that at the core, I think is going to carry us through in a life where suicide rates are sky high, depression, alcohol, and we really need that mental stability. And I think that all comes from our Heavenly Father. So that's my words of wisdom.
Man, I love it, Will. Thank you so much for sharing that. And man, one of the things I love most about you is your devotion and your faith and your vocal about it. And that it's one of those things I like to hear, and it makes me feel better, and it makes me want to be more in tune with my faith and with my family. And so you've inspired me, and you continue to, man. So hope this isn't the Kiss Bad Bunny's butt show, but I want everyone to know, man, how much I think of you. And I can't thank you enough for being here, man. I know you're a busy guy, so go back to knocking on some doors and flipping some houses, and we'll see you next time. If they want to follow you, where can they go to find you so they can keep an eye on what you're up to?
Yeah, I think the best place is Instagram. At William.ODO.
All right, that's it. William.ODO. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Build Better Blueprint. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
That's it, folks. That's our show. Thanks as always for listening. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to our channel so you are up to date with the latest episodes. Feel free to share with your friends and keep up the great work. You are on the right path. See you at the top.